So welcome to FitPro-X TV, where we will be, talking about the fitness wellness industry. We are joined by Stacey today from Hotpod Yoga. But yeah, I'll let you tell everybody a little bit about that.
So I'm Stacey. I come from Canada. I moved to the Northeast about 7 or 8 years ago. I used to be a primary school teacher, but I always taught yoga sort of as part-time, and then fell out of love with teaching and made wellness sort of my commitment and made my passion my career. And then opened up a yoga studio almost 2 years ago now. So I guess I have to take it back then to, oh my God, I don't want to age myself. So I'll just say it was almost 20 years ago when I did my first yoga class. And it was just sort of like after school type of thing. And, you start to move and you think, oh, I can do all these cool shapes and stretches, but you start to get a little bit more into it. I started getting more of a routine class. So I started weekly, then I started doing it a little bit more often. And all of a sudden you realize you've got this almost superpower where you can control how you're feeling, or you can take yourself out of a moment just by stopping and breathing. And it goes beyond sort of just the movement. I was traveling for a year, and in that time I sort of got pulled into the party sort of world of Southeast Asia, got pulled back to reality by a yoga class. And on that trip, I decided, this is almost 10 years ago now, I decided that I'm going to go and do my yoga teacher training. I'd been practicing for long enough and I wanted to deepen my awareness, wanted to deepen my practice. So I went in and did that. And then, as I said, I fell into a different career path. I didn't believe I could actually do anything with yoga. I didn't believe I could make something of myself with it. I was really unhappy because I was pushing down what I wanted to do. I was stifling myself in what was expected. And then I started dabbling, doing more classes on the side. And then I sort of came out of the system, had a really bad experience. I was just doing supply, teaching more yoga classes. And then I went into full-time teaching. And then after COVID, I opened up the studio.
So did you teach yoga when you were in Canada?
I did.
Or was it just over here?
No, I taught yoga in Canada. I did mostly like private sessions. I did a few cool sessions with some Olympic gymnasts and stuff. I do, when I go back, sometimes I'll teach at the TriStar gym, things like that. So, but I think I think both, but my big teaching career move started here in the UK.
Do you think it's got bigger, yoga here? I feel like, obviously, with Hotpod Yoga, because that was my first experience of yoga, and I feel like, you see, it just seemed kind of more inviting and more something that I'd be likely to do than just kind of go to a yoga class, because it adds like a different dimension. Do you feel like that's made it way more popular?
I think there's something to it. One of the sort of Hotpod Yoga goals is to get people who wouldn't have otherwise been interested in yoga in the door.
Yeah.
Once you're through the door, the yoga does the talking, but you're right, the pod adds like a whole other dimension to it. You do have the heat, but you're also zipped away. So no matter where you are in the world, it's this little oasis.
Yeah.
You've got sort of the beats are right. The whole scenario, the whole setting is just right for it. And then, like you say, you wouldn't have done yoga, you wouldn't have really tried it. And it's got this really inclusive feeling for all walks of life.
Do you know what it is? I think from my experience, and other guys might have experienced this as well if they've tried it. It adds like another level to yoga, in terms of, if you just do yoga, it can be seen as kind of something that a lot of guys might not like want to do, just because it, they might feel, oh, it's stretching. Like I'm a guy. If I'm going to work out, I'm going to go to the gym. Because it's so hard doing Hotpod Yoga, you're actually like, shit, this is really tough. Like, this is hard. Like being in here, it's challenging. So it feels like I don't know, it kind of gave me permission a little bit to do yoga.
Yeah.
I know that sounds crazy. Obviously,
that.
That's just like from my, anecdotal experience. But it's like, I'm not just going like stretching. Like, I'm dying from the heat. Like, you got to understand, this is like a challenge. Do you know what I mean? Like,
that's interesting, because first I'm listening and I'm thinking, okay, so what you're saying is like the essence of yoga, where you're sort of just taking the ego away from it. That like, I can't do it because this, and this about me.
Yeah.
But then you're also saying there is a little element of ego because you're saying, well, look, I can do it.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like so for example, when I was personal training, and I'll answer the question where you said, how did I get into this? But when I was personal training, you found it more likely that women would be personal training clients than men. So I would say that I trained more women than men because quite often, guys would be like, well, I know what I'm doing in the gym, or they wouldn't want to take on a coach because they just felt like they could go and do it themselves.
Isn't that the classic, like, masculine psychology of not wanting to ask for directions?
Yeah, literally, like, just keep going around and around and around, like, no, I'll get there, I'm not asking. But I feel like, there is a lot more guys who are getting into being personal trained now, definitely. And a lot more guys go into group classes, which predominantly like boot camps and things. When I first started in the fitness industry, was predominantly women, and classes were predominantly women because guys feel like they'd rather be out of shape than have someone else tell them how to do it, because it's kind of like, it's probably is an ego thing. And I feel like with yoga as well, less emasculating to go to Hotpod Yoga. This is just like, I'm just trying to be honest,
I do think maybe in the Western world, there's that stigma about it, because actually in India, like where it all started, at first it was a male dominated thing. It took a while for women to even be allowed to do it. So it's just really interesting how we adopted it in the Western world, and it became this sort of idea that it's stretching. But I think once you do Hotpod, you do realize that, because it's not with Hotpod, while it's different and it's sweaty and you're in this dark room, and we're not reinventing the wheel with the postures. The postures are the traditional 5,000-year-old yoga postures that you would do in a class in a room that isn't a pod. So I think it's really nice, because I think it did bring it, like you said, it gave you permission to do yoga. And it's bringing it to people that. And
it's only when you do realize how hard it is, because obviously it is a body weight exercise. It's not resistance training in the typical gym sense. It's dependent on the person who's doing it in terms of how hard it is. Obviously, it's if you're heavier, or if you're a guy and you're having to do these like positions and hold yourself in these positions, you're having to hold your whole body weight, and it is difficult. Like it's hard to do. It's not easy, is what I'm trying to say. No. Whereas you think you see yoga and you just look at it and you go, oh, that would be easy. But then you actually do it and you're like, holy shit, this is so difficult. And I feel like maybe that's why some guys don't want to do it. Because in the back of their mind, they know they wouldn't be able to do those exercises. They know that they wouldn't be able to hold those positions. Do you know what I mean? Like,
that's why we need you as a spokesperson.
Yeah, but it is difficult. You'll just tell yourself that, oh yeah, it's like stretching. Like that'd be, I go to the gym. But actually, I'd like to take, some of the biggest, strongest guys in the gym and actually put them through, 45 minutes of yoga, especially in the Hotpod. And actually you finish and you get a really good workout out of it. And also it's, you finish and you feel better after as well.